Hello, welcome back students. So in this video lecture we'll be discussing the last part of the life cycle of Taenia solium. So actually it is not the part of the life cycle. The life cycle we have finished in the previous lecture. We have to discuss a little bit about the transmission of this cysticercus to the man, or how the infection of tapeworm is proceeding, and also the pathogenic effects and some preventive measures or the prophylaxis that we of this tapeworm will be discussing. So as we have discussed the life cycle in the previous lecture, the measly pock, we have mentioned about the measly pock. So in the involuntary muscles of the pig, this hexacanth embryo will uses these hooks, and soon it grows into the fluid fill bladder like and known as a cysticercus or a bladder worm. Okay, will into a bladder worm, and this cysticercus soon secretes a cyst around it, produces a cyst around it, and then its wall thickens on one side, and actually the vagination takes place. Then the proglotid stage or the eversion stage takes place. Then the scolex and the neck arises. So we have seen in detail in the previous lecture, and we have discussed this diagram. This is a diagram. This is a invaginated cysticercus. Then this picture, it is a cysticercus with the proglottis. Then what happened? Exvagination of the proglottis takes place. That is, from this the scolex turns, from this invagination the scolex again turns into the upright position. Okay, so there are the certain terms which is very important in this, that is a bladder worm. So this is a bladder worm. You can see here a bladder worm. So at this stage also it's called as a bladder. So the worm, the head and the proglottis appears, and at this stage it is called as a cysticercus with proscolex, or it's also called as a bladder worm. So next we will see about the transmission of the cysticercus to man. The transmission of cysticercus into the human host occurs through the meat of the pig. That is, when the meat of the pig which is infested with the live cysticercae is called as a measly pock. As we have said, this is a portion of a pig muscle which is embedded with the cysticercae, and if this muscle is happened to be taken in by a man, the cyst enters into the body of a human being. And this transmission of the cysticercae occurs when the man enters only if the meat is improperly cooked. If the measly pock is improperly cooked, this cysticercus reaches the body of a man, of a healthy man, and during this stage a large number of cysticercae, what happens, get into the human stomach, and inside the stomach the bladder gets dissolved, and the uninjured part passes into the small intestine, and it gets clinged to the intestine. As you can see here in this picture, it is a flesh loaded with cysticercae, and if it reaches the stomach of a healthy man, what happens is that the cyst wall gets dissolved and the uninjured part passes into the small intestine, and it clicks to the intestinal wall with its hooks and the suckers. So here you can see the hooks and the suckers. The outer covering gets dissolved and this hooks becomes visible, and with the help of these hooks and the suckers they gets clinged to the wall of the intestine, and then it buds off a chain of proglottids and transformed into the adult. Like this it gets transformed into the adult tapeworm. Okay, so that is how the transmission occurs from a pig, which is a secondary host. It enters back into the primary host. So that is the path of transmission. Then when we discuss about the pathogenic effects, the heavy infection of cysticercus and the adult tapeworm is very much harmful to the human beings, and the heavy infection is called in human beings is called as a Taeniasis or tapeworm disease, and by the cysticercae causes a disease called as a cysticercosis. If the human body it is heavily infested with the cysticercus, then that condition is called as a cysticercosis, and if the man or a human it is heavily infested with the tapeworm, it is called as a Taeniasis. So this term, you just point out the differences. The heavy infection of the adult tapeworm is called as a Taeniasis. Heavy infection of the adult is called as a Taeniasis, and by the cysticercae, heavy infestation by the cysticercae is called as a cysticercosis. Okay. Then the Taeniasis is often characterized by the following manifestations, such as intestinal irritation or the intestinal blockage. So as we know that the tapeworm it is having much length, so if the intestine the heavy infestation of the intestine with this tapeworm, it will actually block the normal passage of the intestinal fluid and the digested materials, etc., and which leading to the indigestion, constipation, diarrhea, abnormal discomfort, etc. Okay, it also in most of the cases the infection do not cause any symptoms, and usually the heavy severe or the heavy or the chronic condition, then when it reaches a chronic condition, the symptoms like stomach pain, loss of appetite, weight loss, and the stomach upset occurs, and the tapeworm segments may be visible as they pass through the anus and in the fecal matter. So in the fecus also, if you just undergo the testing of the fecal matter, then we can see the proclotid of this tapeworm. So that is about the Taeniasis, and how the medication can be used for the treatment of Taeniasis. That is, albendazole can be given, then adequate sanitation and the cooking the meat to the safe temperature can help to prevent the infestation of this tapeworm. Okay, so then if the eggs or the proglottids are accidentally ingested by the human, the liberated embryo migrate to the several parts of the organs through the blood and form the cysticercae, and this condition is called as a cysticercosis. So this is a picture showing the heavy infestation of a brain with the cysticercae. It is a cross-sectional view of a brain of a person who died of cerebral cysticercosis and the infection of a cysticercae of Taenia solium. So actually this type of diseases is taking place in the human beings where the sanitation is not given much importance. Okay, so in our country it's not that much affected. Our country is not much affected by these diseases because we actually treat the individuals with the anti-helminth drugs. Okay, deworming, it's a common practice among the children who regularly visit for vaccination and all. They will just give the tablet for deworming also. So actually this is not much prevalent in our country, but still reports are there. Okay, so this is a brain with the cysticercae. You can see here a small miniature of the worm in the brain. So it's actually an important condition. And apart from this, certain neurological problems due to the absorption of the toxic waste by of the worm can also occur. Then the puncture of the intestinal wall by the hooks and causing the nitus can also take place. That is, intestinal walls will be heavily punctured by this worms with their hooks. So this can causes internal bleeding, etc. Then actually the cysticercosis is much complicated than the teniasis. Okay, so almost through the blood it can reach almost to the various internal organs and gets accumulated to all the vital organs, and it is a very difficult condition if the vital organs gets loaded with this cysticerci. So since this tapeworm, it is a parasite, you have to point out the certain parasitic adaptation of this Taenia solium. So we will just list out the parasitic adaptation of this Taenia solium. The first of all, it is an obligatory parasite. Then morphology and physiologically it is adapted for the endoparasitic life. Actually they are seen inside the body of the higher vertebrate, and the parasitic adaptations includes such as the loss of locomotory, digestive, circulatory and respiratory organs. Hope you remember when we discussed Platyhelminthes structure, we have discussed that there is no much locomotory, specialized locomotory organs for this Platyhelminthes or this Taenia solium. We can't see any locomotory organs. Since they are the endoparas, they need not require any locomotory organ. They, after entering into the host body, they move according to the or along with the fluid, body fluid, they just move. Along with the digested fluid, they just move. Then along with the food materials, when it reaches the blood, it enters through this organs, through the blood vessels, etc. So then the digestive and the circulatory and the respiratory organs are absent, so they need not respire because they are endoparasite, isn't it? And they are respiratory surface, they are having a respiratory surface, the body surface capable of respiration. Then circulation is not needed for them because they are, and digestive system is not required for them because they intake digested food, isn't it? These tapeworm just cling to the intestinal wall and they will just absorb the digested food materials from the host body. Okay, with the help of their rostrum, hooks and the suckers, they will just adhere, anchor and then suck the digested food. Then they are having highly resistant, freely permeable covering called as a tegumen. That's again a parasitic adaptation which adds as a, or which help them as a protection for the host enzymes and also help for the absorption of the nutrients. Then they exhibit hermaphroditism, that is a male and the female sex organs are present in the each proglottid. Then enormous reproductive powers and production of large number of gametes, they also acts as a parasitic adaptation. And there is only the gamete face a high risk for the transmission of the parasitic form into the another host. So they are having the maximum reproductive capacity is there. Then absence of brain and the receptor organs. So since they are the endoparasite, they lack these type of specialized structures. Then they are having the high power of anaerobic respiration, which is also another advantage. So these are the few parasitic adaptation, and with this we will just end this video lecture. So in this video lecture you have to study the certain terms such as teniasis, cysticercosis, which are the two diseases which is caused by this tapeworm. Then you have to study what is bladder worm. Then you have to study measly pox. Then you have to study the parasitic adaptation of Taenia solium. That's all in this video lecture.